So the outline is very important because it is fundamental to what we're doing for the next 4 weeks. You're gonna start writing your mini thesis. And on Thursday, you're gonna turn in the first 3 paragraphs. Believe it or not. Now you may go, how is that possible? Well, guess what? Outlining it is so much harder than writing it. And so you will have edits you'll need to make to your outline. But the part that you're turning in on Thursday is your intro, history, and confirmation 1. Well, I've already looked at those parts twice for you. I made edits last Tuesday, you turned it in on Friday, I made edits again. So you really should be in a good position for writing. And if you're not, you need to talk to me. So that is going to be due on Thursday. So every day this week, we're gonna take one piece of it. Today, we're gonna talk about writing your intro, tomorrow, history, and then on Wednesday, confirmation 1. Okay? The end of every week for the next 3 weeks, you're gonna turn in one part of your mini thesis. That's gonna be your rough draft. You will not turn in one entire rough draft. You will turn in your rough draft in 3 pieces, and then you will write your final paper. And so really, that outline is huge. And Graciela said to me this weekend as she watched me on the couch, she was like, I really hated doing the outline. I was like, I hate grading the outline. But what it does is it gives you a really strong foundation for the product of your paper. So it's a necessary pain. And it's painful for me too. It takes a lot of time.
Wait, what's the thing that's doing back there?
So this is,
Confirmation 1.
you're writing paragraphs. You're writing 3 paragraphs. Okay? So I want to talk about mini thesis intro. So can you grab the sheet that says this? Everybody looking at that, you have so many goodies. So we have done introductions before. You have other handouts on introductions. Campbell, what's the first purpose of an introduction?
To introduce your topic.
Uh-huh. That's the overall. There's 3 big things that I've stressed all year. Ben?
3 main purposes: to capture attention, to give any
Oh my
necessary
gosh,
background.
There is nothing wrong with using your resources. But you guys, the capture attention is so important. And there are a few holdouts that seem so determined not to capture attention. Okay? So here's what I'm going to say. If you decide that you are determined not to capture attention, that you are going to start in a boring, argumentative way, then you just need to count the cost. That means you'll have points taken off on your rough draft, on your final paper, and on your mini thesis presentation. So make sure it means enough to you to not capture attention. Okay? You guys know who I'm talking about. So if the shoe fits, think long and hard about that. You want to get people to want to listen to you. The first 1 minute of your mini thesis presentation makes all the difference. And if you start in a boring manner, people tune you out. You know this from church on Sunday. If it's boring in the first 2 minutes, you do not listen to them. So I've given you, and we'll talk about the other purposes, but I've given you 6 easy ways to do a mini thesis introduction. And this is on my topic, the border wall. So we're gonna go over these 6. And the first one is to use a quotation. I think a lot of you are leaning towards that. I saw a lot of good quotations. Jonathan, can you read that example?
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the U.S. undocumented, undetected, unchecked, circumventing the people who are waiting patiently, diligently, lawfully to become immigrants into this country. Barack Obama.
Okay. If you have a quotation, it should be 1, no more than 2 sentences. Okay, it needs to be short, to the point. Now, if this were really in my paper, I wouldn't just say Barack Obama 2005. I'd say this quote by Barack Obama shows the unfairness of illegal immigrants sneaking into our country. Okay, that's another way, illegal aliens. So you have to always give the context of your quote, but a quote can be good. And I think some of the best quotes are really short, like 5 or 6 words. So that is one option. The other is an anecdotal opener. Does anybody remember what an anecdote is?
Oh.
Make cure stuff.
What? No, not antidote. This is anecdote.
Oh my gosh.
It's a story.
Oh,
It's a story, an anecdote. So again, if you start with an anecdotal opener, it needs to be a short story. Belle, can you read this story? And I'm sorry, it's a sad story, but it is attention grabbing.
In the spring of 2018, Molly Tibbetts, a University of Iowa student, was brutally Vera, an illegal immigrant who had crossed the southern border 7 years earlier.
Okay,
Could be Anna.
what?
What's that,
Is it
Ann?
and or is
Should be
It should be Ann. I know, I corrected on the computer, but it was too late for this. So, an illegal immigrant. So, this is one sentence. That's the tricky part with anecdotal openers, is that it's easy to want to tell a story, and stories can take a lot of words, but you need to have one sentence. So, like, I didn't say that Molly, where she was from, or what she was studying, or that it was in a cornfield, like, none of that. A really brief story to illustrate the problem of illegal immigrants, okay? You could ask a question. This is like the lowest hanging fruit from the introduction tree. Everyone can ask a question. It may not even be that like attention getting, but this would show good faith effort. So Jacob, can you read that question?
How does a government best protect its borders?
Okay, you ask a question, you invite your reader in. So you could do that. Okay, you could give a fact or statistic. Now it needs to be interesting because statistics make most of us go, oh, boring. So you need to make sure it's a little light on numbers. Like you don't want to have a statistic that says 125,437. Like you don't want complicated numbers. You want it to be short and to the point. So Catherine, can you read that under fact or statistic?
Last year, Border Patrol agents along the northern border apprehended 3,027 people who were in the country illegally. By comparison, agents along the southern borders captured more than 300,000.
Okay, and then what's in parentheses is the article I got it from. Now, actually, if this was for mini thesis, I would change that first number and say that they apprehended approximately 3,000. Because people just don't process numbers as easily as words. So, it has to be interesting. So you could do that. You can also use a series of fragments or short sentences. Question, Maddie?
Well, is there a limit for all of these of how many sentences you can have?
In your intro?
Or for these examples?
No, but I tried to keep them short.
Okay, so like 1 or 2 questions?
I would say your attention grabber shouldn't be more than 2 sentences. Okay? Okay, fragments or short sentences. Charlie, can you read those?
America, land of the free, land of opportunity, land of the lawbreaker. No one wants to describe the United States in these terms. But unless the government takes steps to prevent illegal immigration, the United States will indeed become land of the lawbreaker.
Okay, so that's just kind of dramatic. It's my own words. It's the only time where you can use an incomplete sentence, just to be able to draw attention. And then the last one is an imagine statement. Sarah Rhodes, can you read that?
Imagine if the U.S. borders were open to any person who wanted to come in. Imagine what this would do to our roads, our neighborhoods, our businesses, and our people.
Okay, and actually with that, for mini thesis, we'd have to take out our, because we're not using first person pronouns. So these are 6 ways that you could start your paper. You have a full menu of options. So for the introduction that's due on Thursday, I expect that you're gonna have something attention grabbing, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing, turn over on the back, you're gonna give important background information. Now you are thinking, what is important to introduce the topic? Now, I am not gonna have you guys do this. I had my other classes do it, but I think you all get this. Your intro is a funnel. Okay, if you don't remember that, write that down. But you're starting broad and it's narrowing to your thesis. And so you need to have sentences that build on the sentence before. And the thing about the funnel is it flows. We're not doing like Lego blocks like I showed last week. This is a flow. So you've got 3 blocks of information right now in your mini thesis outline. You're gonna need to weave these together so they flow. So background information, it's very subjective. And the tricky part is, you've got background information in your history. So, you have to make some judgment calls of what information belongs in your intro, what will help your intro flow, what belongs in history. And if you put it in intro, don't repeat it in history. Okay? Maddie.
So you want to start like with the broad opener,
Mhm.
and then you want to get
Then you're gonna narrow it, so you're gonna say something about the information, like, I'm not writing a paper about college students, and I'm not writing a paper on murder. My next statement is gonna be about illegal immigrants, but
Okay.
that's an issue. Catherine,
Really, is there something like fun facts or something like that?
where you can pull up fun facts?
No, where you can
Is
put
there like
fun
a
facts in
document
the paper.
That could be your attention getter. That would be a great thing to use for your attention getter. Okay, third thing I want you to do, and this is kind of a sub-point really under background, provide a brief overview of the controversy. Right now, this is in history, but it may work better in your introduction as you're trying to narrow. And there's 3 ways you can do that, and I've got 3 examples. Lucy, can you read the first example?
Americans hold differing options about how to address the problem of illegal immigration.
Okay, so that's like a really general umbrella. There's lots of different opinions. Christian, could you read the next example?
Some Americans believe that present efforts to contain illegal immigration are working. Others believe tougher standards are needed.
Okay, so that's what a lot of you have already done in history. Like, some people believe this, others believe this. Okay? Or you could use a question. Tim, can you read that example, that last example?
What should the US do to stem the problem of illegal immigration?
Okay. So any of that, again, you're narrowing it, and then you're finally gonna end with your thesis. Okay? So, here's what I would do. You've got things outlined in your history and things in your intro. And really in your intro, all I looked for this week was 3 pieces of information. I would write your intro and see what information helps your intro flow. And if it comes out of the history, great. Your intro is what's most important. And then anything that you don't include in your history, we'll use that tomorrow for the history paragraph. So I would put your intro first because there's a progression that you want. So here's a sample introduction. This has all those pieces and it's only 6 sentences. So in the spring of 2018, Molly Tibbetts, a University of Iowa student, was brutally murdered by Chris Dion, by Hina Riviera, that's wrong, an illegal immigrant who had crossed the southern border 7 years earlier. Although the overall crime rate among immigrants is relatively low, the loss of even one life because of illegal immigration is a tragedy. The Pew Research Center estimates that as of 2016, there were 10.7 million illegal immigrants living in the U.S. What should the United States do to slow the flow of illegal immigrants, especially those coming across the southern U.S.-Mexico border? Of the many suggestions being debated, building a physical border wall is one which merits attention. The U.S. should fund a physical wall for vulnerable sections of its border with Mexico because governments are responsible for maintaining border security. History proves the effectiveness of walls. Illegal immigration is costly to American taxpayers.
Wait, is it correct to do 2 spaces when starting a sentence? That's what it's supposed to do.
It's what it used to be, and now they've changed it, and some of us are very unhappy about it.
And if my dad is like trying to, I don't know, if you ever hold your Tuesday, something like that, that's not.
So where I've landed is, I don't edit that anymore.
Okay.
If you do 1 space or 2 space, it's like a non-issue to me, but the correct thing is 1 space, but I'm old school, I'm not changing on that. Okay, any questions about this? So for time management purposes today in class, you're gonna get your outline. Some of you may have already seen your grades were returned on Google Classroom this morning. And the outline is there with edits. You're gonna make those changes, but you're gonna work on writing your sample introduction. Your introduction. Questions about that? Do you have what you need? Don't open your computer yet. I'm sorry, I gave you a tease, but don't open it yet. Okay, can you guys, looking at this introduction, can you tell me why I have Molly Tibbetts' case in parentheses on the 3rd line?
That's
Because
just.
that's where you got it from.
Okay, that is the source, and this particular source did not have an author. So if it doesn't have an author, you just put the first 2 to 3 words in the article title. So the second thing I want to talk to you about is in-text citations. Maddie?
Why did you have a question in the middle of your intro, not at the
it to show that I'm suggesting a solution, and I thought it was better to ask a question.
So it doesn't always have to be legal.
No, a question could be anywhere. Somebody in another class put questions throughout his outline and they were super effective. Yeah, you can use a question anywhere. Okay, could you look at this in text citation? Now, we've had this, we did this before with our history paper. I think you did this on the, whether people should wear masks. So this is just review. I'm not gonna spend that much time going over it, but I do wanna remind you that there are two types of in-text citations, and this is how you avoid plagiarism. You get information from a source and you give them credit. So the first type is a signal phrase, and a signal phrase, Mr. Willoughby's gone over it with Bronze Bow. You say where you're getting the information from, and you give credentials. So in this case, Dr. Jean Twenge, professor of psychology at San Diego State University, concludes. Now this is really important, and you can pull this from your perk sheet. If Jean Twenge was a lunchroom worker in Milwaukee, we wouldn't care as much about what she has to say. Or even if she was a freshman in college somewhere. But she's a doctorate, she's a professor at a reputable university. So you wanna put the credential, remember, you're trying to improve your ethos. You're trying to show people, wow, you should listen to me. There was one paper, I can't remember whose outline I was reading, that was so persuasive, I found myself thinking that, why do we give homework? I don't think it probably is such a good idea. I can't remember if it was one of y'all's or somebody else, but I was like, wow, the outline was persuasive. Okay, so when you give a signal phrase, you should be pointing the reader back to your source, which will be on your works cited. And so Jean Twenge, I can look at the works cited, I can look for Twenge, and I'll see the source. But the page number is in parentheses at the end of that quote. Okay? Now sometimes you don't have a person, but you have a very reputable organization like the next one, the Pew Research Center. And so you want to say that. Now a lot of times what happens in an article, they'll quote the Pew Research Center, but it's from an article by somebody else, and you want to give that somebody else credit. So at the end of this quote, I put the article it's from. It didn't have an author, but most Americans point. That is where it was from. Okay? So the thing I want to say is, even if you don't have a direct quote, even if you're paraphrasing, you still need to give credit by a signal phrase, or number 2, a parenthetical reference, which just puts the source at the end of the sentence. So if you look at the example, since the rise of social media, far fewer high school seniors hold jobs outside of school. That's my words, but I didn't know it until I read this book by Jean Twenge, okay? So I gave her credit, last name, page number. Okay. Now there's a little bit more detail here. All of these handouts should go in the writing section of your notebook, but this is a really important reference. I do want to say in the history portion of your outline, lots of you did not put sources in there. And I didn't count off for that. I was mainly looking at confirmation points, but when you write the history section, there's history that you've learned from reading it somewhere. So you need to make sure that you're citing your sources in the history section. Maddie.
So in my Pew Research article, it has 2 authors. On a bunch of my articles and books, they have 2 authors. So if I'm trying to quote somebody, would you put the author?
You're gonna do the 2 last names, but if it's like one of those that has a ton, you'll just do the 1 last name et al. Okay? Anna Grace.
On regular citation pages, don't you take the HTTPS off or whatever?
On your works cited page, you should be taking the HTTP. Yeah. Okay. You ready?
I want my papers back now.
Let me wake you up with some grades. Oh, what else did I give you? Oh, edits. Okay, so you guys look at this. This is the last thing. Now, in general, this class did well. But there's a couple things here what do I wanna, okay, let me just go over a couple under language. You've gotta take out your first and second person pronouns, okay? Just get rid of those. Now, I didn't grade on that, and I'm not going to. Your outline will be revised and handed in with your final paper. So don't be like, oh, that's done, because I actually will give you points for making revisions on your outline. But it helps to get rid of your first, second pronouns. Uh-huh.
So about the first and second person pronouns, if there's like an implied you, does that count as one?
Oh,
Cause
that's
like
a,
I see some in here, but I think I just find out like the implied you.
ask me, like, show me a specific example. Also, if it's in a quote, like in yours, show me in yours. If it's, cause kind of like the imagine is an
Yeah.
implied you.
Yeah.
So that would be okay. We give more freedom for those attention grabbers at the beginning, like you can use incomplete sentences. So that would be fine. If it's in a direct quote, it's okay too. But you don't wanna be saying, I think, or you should stop using your phone, or anything like that.
And like
Okay.
the questions as well are fine. Like,
What do you mean?
like,
And the question
when you ask
is
the
how.
question, isn't like, aren't you like basically talking to someone?
Oh, yes, you are, you're talking to your reader, but that's fine, that's fine, that's not a first, second person. Okay, Josh, question? Okay, you're not raising your hand. Colloquial language, that's when you say things that Americans know what you're talking about, but foreigners wouldn't. Like, this argument falls flat, or the opponents fizzle in their presentation, just things that we know. This argument beats around the bush. Don't use that. You're using academic language. And speaking of this argument, this is so important. Some of you were being very conscientious trying to use my language from the outline. You don't want to start sentences with, this controversy is, the main concern is, this mini claim, or these two arguments prove my first mini claim. Like, all of that is language. It's like it's kind of like, have you ever seen a house being built and there's like a scaffolding on the outside of it? Okay, I'm giving you scaffolding, but we're pulling it down, okay? You don't need to use those words in your mini thesis. I didn't count off for that, but you'll notice I crossed it out a lot. Okay, history, I want to stress the second one. No arguments. This is objective information. Look at confirmation points, the first point. Each confirmation point needs to be started with a central claim. Very few people maintained this, a few did. But if you're arguing that social media harms teenagers, and you've got 3 reasons, well, at the beginning of each confirmation point, you'll say, another way that social media harms teenagers is,
I did that.
huh?
I did that.
Awesome. That's awesome. And then the other thing is your mini claims. I don't think many people did this, but your mini claim is not data. It's your argument, and it needs to be really short and to the point. You don't want to make your mini claim a lot of detail. Your warrant is in your words too, okay? And speaking of warrant, this doesn't apply as much to this class, but because there were some shocking outlines, I am tomorrow having a seminar at lunch on how to do a claim data warrant again. So even if you feel like, gosh, I'd just like to hear that again, I just want to be refreshed in that, you're welcome to come. But that's really, really important. Okay, you should read this. Let's stop here though. You can get the computer, hold on, Campbell.
Will we be able to have a rubric?
Yes, I have for what's due on Thursday, it will be posted tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, grab a computer